Hello, class. We are continuing on with Chapter 5, Section 3. Now that we've already done the basic adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing one-step inequalities, we're going to just be doing multi-step inequalities. And so that's going to be our objective today. Now this, if you look, is going to be your first page. But I'm going to go to the bottom of the first page, and then I'm going to kind of come back up here since it involves a word problem. So let's jump to the bottom. The bottom here, we start with some examples, and we are just going to solve these and graph them. It says, remember to put your solution in a solution set. You do not have to do that. Okay? Now, the first thing that we would do to solve this is you have 23 is greater than 10 minus 2w. Again, we just want to get w by itself. So, we would just subtract 10 on both sides. And then you would end up with 13 is greater than negative 2w. Now, to get the w by itself one more time, you have to divide both sides by negative 2, but be careful because when you divide both sides by a negative, you have to remember that the sign has to switch. So now we have negative 13 halves is less than w, or if you want, you can do w is greater than negative 13 halves. Don't worry that it's a fraction, or if you want, you could say w is greater than negative 6.5. Now it says to graph, so I do have to graph it. So here's the graph that I'm given, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, going towards the left. And since it is since it is strictly greater than, it's going to be an open circle at negative 6.5. Now, negative 6.5 is right here in between negative 6 and negative 7. It's an open circle, and since it is greater than, we are going to shade it to the right. And so there's our solution for number 1. Why don't you take a few minutes to try number 2, and in about 5 seconds I will pause it and show you the answer. So there's the math of how you solve for y. Be careful that you actually switch this sign right here, since you are dividing both sides by a negative 4. And then we got negative 8 is less than y, which also means y is greater than negative 8. And then if we graph it, we have our graph right here. Since y is greater than negative 8, that is going to be an open circle, and greater than means it's shading to the right. Number 3, there's actually a few ways you can do this. You can divide both sides by 6 if you want, but I think most students will actually distribute. So if we distribute here, we have 30z minus 18 is less than or equal to 36z. And then since I have z's on both sides of the inequality, I'm just going to subtract 30z on both sides. And so I'm left with negative 18 is less than or equal to 6z. And then you'll notice that in order to get z by itself, I have to divide both sides by a 6. And since it's a positive, I do not have to switch here. And so my final answer will be negative 3 is less than or equal to z, or if you want the variable on the left side, z is greater than or equal to negative 3. And then we'll just have to graph it. So there's my graph. Since it's greater than or equal to, I can close that circle. Since it's greater than, it is shaded to the right. So that's the bottom part of the page. If we move back to the top, we'll take a look at the word problem. It says here, Adriana has a budget of $115 for faxes. That's how much she starts with. The fax service she uses charges $25 to activate an account and 8 cents per page to send faxes. How many pages can Adriana fax and stay within her budget? Now, $115 is the most that she is allowed to spend. And so that is at most, and so that will look like $115. something is less than $115, less than or equal to. Now she uses charges, or the fax charges her $25 to activate an account, plus 8 cents per page. So that's going to be my inequality. So go ahead, take a moment to solve that inequality. We get P is less than or equal to 1,125. Now, since we're talking about a story problem, we're going to have to give a story at the end. So that means Adriana can make or fax at most 1,125 pages. And so that's the word problem that we have and the solution to that word problem. Next, we're going to look at the back page, which is just a little bit more of solving these inequalities. So you can go ahead and try those on your own and then check your answers in a few seconds after you pause. Number 4, there's the solution for number 4. You'll notice that we got an answer of h is greater than 2 2/5. Now, how do you graph 2/5 on the graph? 2/5 is a little under, a little less than 2.5, and so that's why if you notice it's a little bit off to the left, and then we know it's greater than, so it's an open circle and it's going to the right. Take a few minutes to try number 5. Be careful of negatives here and of distributing. You'll also notice something that happens. You might get stuck, and if you get stuck, you can just go ahead and unpause it. But try it yourself for a little bit. You'll notice that when you simplify after distributing, you get the same exact things on each side. Negative 24c plus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 24c plus 6. Now, you have to look very closely at this. Is the left side either greater than or equal to the right side? Now, it's obviously not greater than, but it is equal to. Therefore, since it is equal to, that is a true statement, which means that my solutions are all real numbers. If we remember that, all real numbers, or if you remember what the symbol was, is that R. Now, if we try number 6, we'll actually notice something that's kind of different. So maybe we'll do this one together. You have 46 is less than or equal to 8m minus 8m minus 20. Be careful that this negative also gets distributed to the plus. And then on the right side, 8m minus 8m, that cancels out. And so what we're left with is 46 is less than or equal to negative 20. Now, the question is 46 less than or is it equal to negative 20? It's neither, therefore, this is no solution. Or the symbol, no solution. This kind of gives you a warning. Now, we normally, in equations, when we got something that wasn't true, like negative 6 is equal to 5, this was a no solution set. However, let's say an example, we get negative 6 is less than or equal to 5. This statement is true because negative 6 is less than 5. So this one would also be all real numbers rather than the no solution. So your homework for tonight is the worksheet for 5-3. You can download that from Canvas and work on that through Notability, and then I'll check that tomorrow. That is going to be due at the end of class tomorrow.